Hello everyone, my name is MD and this is the Fourth Branch Project. Today we have a special program and the title is Are Republicans Dumber Than Democrats? Now for those of you who do not, who have just found about this program, rather call it project than a program, but in any event can be used, terms can be used interchangeably. The Fourth Branch Project is actually, we have started this project with one goal, one objective in mind, to perfect the union. And to do that, we discussed a number of topics which most likely going to be social political topics, but the difference between what you may be used to and the topics discussed in this project is the following. We do not just discuss for the sake of discussion. Of course, we debate, we discuss, we analyze, but we do have the ultimate objective to propose a solution, or at the very least to reveal the point of the discussion, because again the ultimate objective of the Fourth Branch is to perfect the union. And there are a number of factors we are well aware of which prevent such perfection from being achieved. And I might want to say ahead of time that we are under no illusion it is an easy task, nor are we expecting everybody to participate or to even offer their help or their participation. Nothing good ever comes easy, and we're well aware of that. In fact, in the very first episode of this project, I did mention that I rely almost exclusively on a principle of George Washington, one of the founders of the Republic, that it is sometimes better to go it alone than to have a crowd which serves no purpose. So having said that, today's topic, are Republicans dumber than Democrats? And just a side note that every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. we have a regular program. Today is just a special program. We have been discussing in during the past few Saturdays in a documentary, the series Can Donald Trump be compared to Adolf Hitler? Now, before any conclusion is drawn, of course, judging by the documentary that we currently discussing on Saturdays, and by the very title today, the conclusion can be easily drawn that this person that you're looking at is a damn liberal. Now, for sake of information, I am neither a liberal, which I, by the way, consider as a negative connotation used by Republicans to refer to Democrats. So regardless, I'm neither a liberal nor a Republican. But for sake of conversation here in this program, I refer to Democrats as Democrat, to Republican as Republicans. I do not use the other terms that seems to satisfy one group and being used to insult the other group. So when I talk about Democrat, you'll hear Democrat. When I talk about Republican, you'll hear Republican. So any other label used by whether it's progressive or Democrats, who seem to have caught up with the idea that the word liberal is used in a very negative way, and Republicans who seem to love the word conservative because it sounds better, it makes them feel good. So from me, you get neither. You get Democrats or Republican. In any event, the title today, are Republicans dumber than Democrats? Now, in all fairness, this is not anything new. This is not a conversation that started this year or that started a couple of years ago. This particular question has been asked a number of times. In fact, it's been decades since that question has been asked. Which party has the smarter individual? Now, if you talk to Democrats, they will tell you why they believe that Democrats are smarter. And if you talk to Republicans, they'll give you a reason why they think what Democrats think is not true. But interestingly enough, or ironically enough, you'll find that most of the time, they do not, most Republicans anyway, they do not say the opposite. They simply go defend the idea that Democrats are smarter than Republicans. That doesn't mean in both parties there are always a number of people who think otherwise. Some Democrats, well, I would say just a few, would think that there is no, it's not a general concept that Democrats are smarter or Republicans are smarter. They will tell you, and mostly Republicans, I found out talking to them, that they tend to think that there are smart people on both parties. So they do not think Democrats hold the key to the smart people or vice versa. Now, one question that I guess that needs to be asked, if indeed that's the case, meaning if Republicans feel a certain way, or Republicans feel that Democrats are no smarter than Republicans, and Democrats feel that's also the case, then why is the question been lingering around for so long? As a matter of fact, it's been around for so long that the past 5 to 7 years, there has been scientific studies made to answer just that very question. Just to give you an idea as to how long this has been around, that it has gotten to a point where even science decides, well, we got to take a look at that issue. Is it what really triggered that very question, and whether there is any truth to the actual question? So, because the question was asked, and was asked many, many times, and because the question has been asked throughout the many years, and now that science has been taking a look at the very question and trying to understand, not just science actually is not trying to understand the question, but science is trying to understand whether there is any truth to it, whether there is a party, in that case Democrat, whose members are smarter than Republican. And of course, depending on the finding, the finding, of course, will guide us to the answer. But the finding, the science is not trying to answer the question as to what then. Now, this is where we come in. This is where the fourth branch come in, because as I mentioned, we do not just come and talk about a topic just for the sake of topic. We talk about it because there is, for two reasons. Number one, to educate, so that, well, at the end of this conversation, you know exactly who is the smartest, not just a hunch, not just, well, you don't care, but rather because we put a lot of emphasis on removing ignorance out of the conversation, because we have determined that the biggest stumbling block, not just here in the United States, but across the world, for any kind of institution, the major stumbling block is ignorance. So if there is ignorance, there cannot be any progress made in any aspect of any organization or any group. So having said that, anyone who is interested in moving the needle further down towards perfection has to have interest in knowledge, has to have interest in being informed, has to have interest in removing ignorance. And before I go on a break to come back and discuss this, I have to say that if anyone is claiming, if anyone claims to be to want things to get better, if you hear, this is actually the important test, because anyone who claims to want things to be better, and I also want to make a general point. Not any point in the existence of the Republic that you will ever have a uniformity across the board. Even if there were to be a single, one unique political party in the country, you would never find that everybody in the country would work towards perfection, because that's just the nature of mankind, that there will always be a group of people who, for one reason or another, do not want things to get better, do not want things to work for the sake of the majority. They always stand in opposition to progress. So we understand that as we're trying to work towards perfection, we understand there are a number of obstacles that we have to remove. And the major one at this point is ignorance. So there are others, and we understand that there are others, but in our journey, we have found out that once that part is removed from the conversation, it becomes a little bit easier to actually get to whatever the goal is, to whatever the objective is. And I also want to make the difference between ignorance and stupidity or foolishness. Ignorance is when you are not in possession of knowledge of some kind. For instance, if I take my personal example, I am not an astrophysicist, so when it comes to that aspect of life, if I'm among astrophysicists who are talking about whatever aspect of their trade, of their profession, then I would be in that circle an ignorant individual. Now, which is very different from being a foolish or a stupid person. Now, a stupid person would, number one, refuse to acquire knowledge, and even when the person acquires, comes in contact with information that would have moved the needle from being ignorant, they tend to want to stay in the circle where they are, because they, for reason that, again, nobody can understand, they prefer to stay in the lane where knowledge, they reject knowledge, or they reject any form of educating themselves, so they stay as fools. And there are two types of those fools in the world: those who cannot change, and those are the worst, and those who will not change. Now, as bad as it sounds, those who will not change, there is a little bit of wiggle room to help them get out of their predicament. So I don't want the terms ignorance to be confused with the terms fools or stupid, because there are plenty of stupid people. That's really, and I don't mince words when I'm talking about one group of people versus another, because the point is to identify a problem in order to bring a solution. And one of the problems that we have identified when we started the project, the fourth branch, is ignorance is a major factor. For now, we pretty much tend to push aside foolishness and stupidity, because it's a very difficult task to try to educate someone who just doesn't want any education, to try to reason with someone who just couldn't care less because they prefer to stay in their state of mind. 2 plus 2 will always be equal 4 for someone who wants to learn, who didn't know that. But for the stupid, they don't care whether it's 4 or 5, and if you try to demonstrate that it's 4, that foolish person would probably hit you or hate you because they just don't want to learn. So we focus on those who may not have knowledge on particular topic and who would be eager to get that type of education and work towards removing the ignorance aspect. And we know ignorance is dangerous, and we've been saying that on the program, that ignorance is the biggest threat to democracy. So we try to remove ignorance out of the picture in order to get to the point where we can reach perfection. Because if anybody claims that they want to work towards perfection and at the same time they ignore knowledge, they ignore education, and they just outright, because I can tell you from reaction that the minute that I put a particular program, title of a program out, a number of people either send me tweet to curse me, to scream at me without even knowing the detail. So I already know which category those individuals belong to. Because you cannot just by reading a title and decide what it is about, because you cannot just by reading a title decide that, well, it's about those damn liberal cursing or talking bad about Republicans. So the title today, are Republicans dumber than Democrats? There are two aspects to the discussion that I want to bring forth. The first aspect is, of course, the study, the scientific study that have come up with some answers to that question. And of course, the main point to the discussion is not just for the sake of telling you about it, but also to say, okay, now that we know the answer, then what? So that's what this program is about, is to try to get to the bottom of and to remove obstacle. So ignorance is the main obstacle that we're trying to remove in this project. And of course, to do that is not a matter of coming one day and remove it, is to educate about several different topics and present a way forward. And hoping that maybe not this generation, maybe the next generation will be able to take advantage of the knowledge and move the needle further towards a more perfect union. So hang tight, I will be back to discuss the finding, the scientific finding, right after we take a short commercial. I'll be right back. My name is MD, and you are watching the Fourth Branch program. See you Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for a very lively discussion. Be there.
whoa. Your one item would be the Name Your Price tool?
It helps people save on car insurance. Why wouldn't it save me?
Why? What would you bring? A boat?
Huh.
I'm telling you, Michael Jordan himself was right here in my McDonald's. I fixed him the very first McJordan special.
Right, Bill.
I did. I took a quarter pound of pure beef, smoked bacon, cheese, and some of my favorite barbecue sauce, and I named it the McJordan special.
Bill, the sandwich, definitely great.
Yeah, but you got the cooling with that story.
But it's true.
How you doing, Bill?
Hi, Michael. Michael.
The McJordan special for a limited time.
Whoa! That is some group of people, thousands. So nice, thank you very much. That's really nice, thank you. It's great to be at Trump Tower. It's great to be in a wonderful city, New York. And it's an honor to have everybody here. This is beyond anybody's expectations. There's been no crowd like this. We used to have victories, but we don't have them. When was the last time anybody saw us beating, let's say, China in a trade deal? They kill us. I beat China all the time.
Donald Trump has transformed America in ways no one could ever anticipate. One can only guess where the country will be at the end of his presidency. We have, however, captured the journey to the Oval Office in the book entitled Defiant for America. They said he didn't have the guts to run for public office. He proved them wrong. They said his presidential bid would not last a few weeks. He proved them wrong. They said he could not become the nominee. He proved them wrong. Get a copy of this book and follow Donald Trump in his journey to make America great again. Found at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere online. Get your own copy today.
I'm Jeff Gannett, CEO of Macy's, and I wanted to take a moment of your time to thank you for being such an amazing customer, because I truly believe that Macy's customers are the greatest in the world. Recently, you said you wanted a simpler rewards program. Well, I'm here to say that we've heard you, and starting this month, we're introducing the new and improved Macy's Star Rewards, a reimagined, simpler rewards program starring you. You said you wanted more savings. All members at every level get 25% off any day you choose with Star Passes. You said you wanted free shipping. Gold status means getting free shipping with no minimum, plus the silver status benefit. You said you wanted better rewards. Platinum status means 5% back in rewards every day on all Macy's merchandise, no exclusions, plus gold and silver status benefits. We want Macy's customers to know they are the best customers in the world. And we want each and every one of our cardholders to know that with the new Macy's Star Rewards, it is your time to shine.
Meet the new Macy's Star Rewards, exclusive to cardholders. Discover your status today at Macys.com/Star Rewards.
Ignorance, they say, is the biggest threat to any democracy. Indeed, it is. Plato, a Greek philosopher born in 427 BC, said that ignorance is the root and stem of all evil. Today, members in the Republican Party wear ignorance as a badge of honor, while the rest of the country watch powerless the destruction of a country which was once the envy of the world. The media is the enemy of the country, said Donald Trump. The Democrat legislators are obstructionists for not going along with everything the president wants. The Department of Justice is biased for investigating corruption in the Trump administration. This is the United States of America. Any question? In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies, presenting to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a recent survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore.
Got just what I need. Everything from my home, you got it for me. I never see selection quite like this. Every color and size in my mind. They got every single thing on my list. And with 70% off, who knows what I'll find. Wayfair, you've got just what I need. Everything from my home, you got it for me. Wayfair, and the shipping was free. Now my home's the home I want.
From all of us at Wayfair, find what you need today.
Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the Fourth Branch Project, the first and only program which is dedicated exclusively to those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. The Fourth Branch Project seeks to emphasize country over party. Its primary objective is to restore interest in civic duty and involvement in social, political issues, discussion, debate, which might impact lives in this generation and quite possibly in future ones. Put differently, the Fourth Branch Project is a journey towards restoring America's greatness, where patriotism is the foundation of every decision, every policy, every word, every action. Said differently, it is a journey to save democracy in America. Stay with us. We will be right back. Hello again, I am MD, and this is a special program of the Fourth Range Project. And we are talking about a sensitive topic: are Republicans dumber than Democrats? The past decade, actually since 2009, 2010, the question has been asked us so many times, has been debated so many times that, as mentioned on top of the program, that science has taken upon itself to find out the answer to the question. And a number of papers have been published to answer one aspect of the question. Now, there is interestingly enough, an aspect that's not much debated that I will talk about right after I read some of the papers that were published, and that gives a little bit of insight into the topic of whether Republicans are dumber than Democrats. Now, here's an interesting paper that I'm looking at that actually trying to make sense of whether that there is a difference between the red brain and the blue brain. Kind of a humorous way of doing the study. So it's maybe it was for that very reason, or maybe there is some aspect of the study that gets those experts to use the red and the blue as a way to differentiate between Democrat and Republican. Now, in 2010, which is pretty much I would say at the cusp of that debate that's been ongoing, and if you had the privilege to spend time beside just in a classroom and rush out of the college campus to go to work or what have you, if you had the opportunity to mingle with your colleagues, it should not be a mystery at this point that this is a question that's been debated a lot. On February 26, 2010, that very study was made and reported on Time magazine. And the study actually is pretty similar to the question I asked here. Say, are liberals smarter than conservatives? Of course, I rephrase the question prior to actually stumbling on this article that was written by the Time. So, are liberals smarter than conservatives? And I'll just read the first sentence that says, the notion that liberals are smarter than conservatives is familiar to anyone who has spent time on a college campus. So exactly what I was saying earlier, that indeed, if you spend time not just studying and rush out of there, then it's a question that your colleagues must have had that kind of debate at some point, at one point or another, especially for those students who stayed on campus. Then that would be definitely a conversation that they would have had. Now, and the study asked the question, is that really true? Now, here's the short answer. Now, the short answer was provided by an individual, name is Kanazawa, who actually wrote a very extensive paper after a very extensive study on the matter to shed light in this topic that seems to even after all these years, all those studies have been done, and a number of papers have answered that very question, but for one reason or another, the question keep coming as if the answer, as if people are looking for a specific answer, or they're looking for an answer to satisfy their own curiosity. So in this particular topic, it seems that Democrats seems to be more or less satisfied with the answer. Republicans seems to be not so much satisfied with the answer. So that's why, maybe that's why the question is still being asked. So the short answer is Kanazawa answered the question this way. He said that more intelligent people are more likely to say they are liberal. Say more intelligent people are more likely to say they are liberal. Now, again, remember, it is, I'm reporting you a study, a specific study that was made, but again, since 2009, there have been really tons of study done for that specific topic, and overwhelmingly, the answer, if you want it to be as short as Kanazawa's, the answer is a simple yes. Democrats are much smarter than Republicans. But before you throw the towel and say, well, I know from the time that I started to watch it, that's exactly what I would have gotten listening to a liberal. Again, I want to press the very fact that I am neither a Democrat nor a Republican. I don't even consider myself as independent, and there is a reason for shying away from all those labels, is because there are plenty of aspects of the Republican Party that I like. There are plenty of other aspects of the Democrat Party that I like, and when I make a decision, casting a vote, I usually weigh the pros and the cons of which of those things that I like, or I enjoy, or I favor, which one of those things weigh more in that particular instance, in that particular circumstance, and that actually determines which way I vote. So no, I am not a Dem liberal, nor I am a Republican. So the labels are completely off my life in general, because I can be one or the other depending on the particular circumstance. So having said that, and of course I want to remind you that the purpose of the debate, the discussion on the topic, is not for the sake of discussion, because there is an ultimate objective to providing the information and try to use that information towards achieving a perfect union. Because you probably will hear that probably as often as I have the opportunity to be the host of this program, is the ultimate objective is to achieve a more perfect union. And we know that one of the biggest obstacles to get to that objective, to that goal, is to remove ignorance. And thus far, this is the big stumbling block. This is the big obstacles that seem to stand in the way of getting there. So that's what we intend to do with every topic that we discuss. every topic that we tackle has for ultimate goal to educate and to use that as a step towards that objective, which is a more perfect union. So Kanazawa's answer, that the short answer is that more intelligent people are more likely to say they are Democrat. Of course, he used the word liberal in his paper. Now, here's another study that was done on June 2014, and it was written by Ronald Bailey. And the question that was asked and the paper and the research that was done was, are conservatives dumber than liberals? Are conservative dumber than liberals? And on the subtitle, Ronald answered and said, it depends on how you define conservative. The research shows classical libertarian are smarter of all. So now the question is pretty much answered in the subtitle itself. It says that it depends on how you define conservative. So while a number of Republicans seems to love the label conservative, but for the same reason that, or maybe not necessarily the same reason, but whenever the question comes, are Democrats smarter than Republicans, they automatically feel that it's those damn liberal that want to change the subject and want to talk about something else. Now, the question I actually would prefer to hear when a discussion of sort is on the table, meaning there is a debate between which party has more smart people, the question that I would prefer to ask, or I would have preferred to hear from Republican, not so much bashing Democrat for asking the question or bashing anybody for asking the question, but rather to ask the very question, how so? So why exactly? And I before I actually get to an interesting part of the part that actually is important as to why we are debating that topic, because again, it's not just for the sake of debating it. It's not just for the sake of flaunting a topic discussing a topic that favors one party over the other, but it's rather to educate all parties and to use that education, that information, and use it towards getting a little bit closer towards a more perfect union. So the ultimate objective, the ultimate goal that we have with the project, the Fourth Branch project, is to achieve a more perfect union. That's the ultimate objective. Now, to get there, we understand that there are a lot of twists and turns. There are a lot of hoops to jump. There are a lot of obstacles to remove. We understand all that, but we keep our focus on that objective, on that target, towards a more perfect union. So today's topic is, are Republicans dumber than Democrats? And we already read an answer by Kanazawa's. The short answer is that to read his actual answer instead of making one up, it's Kanazawa answered this way. It says that more intelligent people are more likely to say they are liberals. They are more intelligent people are more likely to say they are liberals. Now, Ronald Bailey say that it depends on how you define conservative, because the research showed that classical, liberal, libertarian are smarter overall. So, in a sense, if you are a Democrat, then you would take comfort to find out that, well, studies after study, research after research show that you are smarter. Now, what good is that? Just before I move to that very part of the discussion, is something that would help us use, or at least use that as a segue to get to the next part of the conversation, because it is that important. Now, if you are interested in the papers to read the complete research, of course, the internet is a good place to start. To just Google that very question and you'll find a tons of answers to that question. Now, be aware that there are a lot of blogs by Republican-leaning individual who wrote article trying to present, or at least create some sort of confusion to show that in fact just the opposite is true. Yes, they can come up with example after example of real life situation where they show you that at least they try to prove that just the opposite is true. But we try to stay away from just people who try to simply prove a point, but rather rely on science, on research to provide the answer. And there is a reason for that, because the first step to solve a problem, whatever that problem is to recognize the problem and then to work or bring a solution. So unless a problem is recognized, there is no solution. And in fact, I must say that to a large extent, a number of people who have done exactly what I just mentioned, a lot of Republican blogs that have tried to confuse the issue, is because a number of them fall into the category that I mentioned at the top of the program of foolish people who just don't want any thing to do with reality, anything to do with the actual answer. So they try to confuse. Those are the people that I mentioned that I push aside in that initiative that we took towards a more perfect union. Then we push aside a number of groups and individuals who are simply not interested in achieving the same goal. They talk about it, they pretend to be interested, to be part of, when in reality they try everything humanly possible to model the issue so that they confuse even people who would be interested in finding out reality, finding out the truth, so that they too can join the bandwagon towards a more perfect union. So we stay away from those type of groups, from those type of individuals. We rely exclusively on proven measures, on proven facts, such in this case on researches, as I mentioned, that have been going on for almost a decade now, since 2009, and those come to pretty much the same conclusion. But here is an interesting segue, the same conclusion in regards to that question. Are Republicans dumber than Democrats? Now, I already the short answer is yes. According to the gentleman Kanazawa's, more intelligent people are more likely to say they are liberals. In other words, they are Democrat. Now, Ronald, who is also a researcher who published a paper also on June of 2014, titled "Are Conservative Dumber Than Liberal?" And he's an interesting segue that he used. He said, conservatives exhibit less cognitive ability than liberals do. Conservatives exhibit less cognitive ability than liberals do. Now, what does that mean? Well, this is actually what I would call the meat of this discussion, to understand exactly what that means, because it is, I would say, the basis for all the answers, all the researches which prove that in fact Democrats are smarter than Republicans, despite the fact that it's not discussed here, but which is what we will be talking about shortly, that it relies on that very basis that Republican or at least individuals who consider themselves conservative, they exhibit less cognitive ability than liberals do. And here's another interesting point before we take another break and discuss about that very important aspect of the discussion, is those researches actually, there are more reason to trust those researches than your own instinct. And I will tell you why. Because sometimes science is almost like something that's proven, but at least the outcome, there's something that's proven, but sometimes they come with they draw a conclusion, and maybe decades later they may revisit the study and come with a different conclusion. And we have had that. So if you are holding the short hand of the stick, you may wish to find that, well, maybe, just maybe at some point in the future, they may find just the opposite is true. Well, here's an interesting thing about those studies that have been going for decades now. Those studies are so accurate that they have been more correct in regards to people affiliation than what people what those individuals say themselves. Here's what that means. If you take 100 Republicans and you ask them which party they believe or they think their children or grandchildren will be part of or will become in a future date. Now, this is one aspect of the study that I'm going to walk that study backward to show you how accurate that kind of predictions with the research are. Now, you take 100 people, we'll call those people belonging to Generation X. Now, if you ask those 100 individual Republican that what they believe a Generation Y, which is the next generation, will be in terms of party affiliation, more than 85% believe, based on the environment their kids, their children were raised, based on the kind of environment, not only at home but in the neighborhood, the kind of discussion that they have, the kind of programming, television programming that they listen to. So those 100 people of Generation X would tell you that Generation Y will also be Republican. Now, 85% of those people in Generation X would tell you that's the way it's gonna be, because they know how they raise their children, how they educate them, what they expose them to, and so on and so forth. So they believe that Generation Y will also be Republican. Now, it sounds logical, because a study already proved that if you were raised by parents who are, for instance, in a particular profession, doctors, engineers, and so on, the children are almost always inclined to follow their parents' footsteps. So it sounds reasonable that those people, 100 people of Generation X, would think that Generation Y would also be Republican. Now, interestingly enough, research found that they are more often wrong than the researchers themselves. So, in other words, actually, I mentioned 85.2 or 3% earlier, but that belongs actually to the research. 72.8% belongs to Generation X inclination to think how their children are going to turn. So, according to the outcome, Generation X would be correct 72%, let's just say 72% of the time. Generation X would be correct, that what they believe their children or Generation Y will be, they will be correct. Now, interestingly enough, research for the same 100 people, research will find that 85% of the research will be correct versus 72% of what the Generation X said. In other words, if you think about it logically, Generation X has been wrong more often than the research themselves. So I'm giving you those information is to kind of give you a way to understand that when we're talking about research relying on proven method, it's way better to do that than to simply rely on hearsay, to simply rely on gut feeling. Now, here's the second part of the prediction made. Now, they take 100 people of Generation Y. Now, we were talking about Generation X. Let's consider Generation X of people that probably already getting close to retirement in their 60s and going forward. Now, Generation Y would be people who are coming in their early 30s. So Generation X, 100 of Generation X believe were more wrong about their belief that their children would become Republican. Now, in comparison to research that were 85% correct. Now, when they reverse the research and go to Generation Y in order to find about Generation X, now they talk to Generation Y. 100 people of Generation Y are interviewed, surveyed to find out what they believe the Generation X was, without them knowing the detail of Generation X. So once again, they find out in their research that Generation Y were 100 people of Generation Y were more wrong than the research was. In other words, Generation Y, who are either Democrat or Republican, this way, remember earlier we were talking exclusively with Generation X, who are Republican, and talking about what Generation Y would become. Now, Generation Y was, in the research, was comprised of both Democrat and Republican, and they did that because they wanted to find out as to when you backtrack to the previous generation, what does it mean in terms of what the previous generation was, in terms of political party affiliation. And they found out that Generation Y was also more wrong than the research, and here's why. If you take someone from the Republican Party in Generation Y, that person was more inclined to think that his or her parents were Republican. By the same token, if you take someone from the Democrat Party in Generation Y, that individual was more inclined to think that his or her parents were Democrat. Well, they find out that was absolutely incorrect, because you may find it vice versa, and in both instances they find out that the Generation X were more wrong than the research. Now, how could that be? The answer lies in the sentence that I read earlier from the research paper that was published by on June of 2014 by Ronald Bailey, that says conservatives exhibit less cognitive ability than liberals. What does that mean? Well, stick around. When we come back, we will discuss, and that is the essence of the question. In fact, that very sentence holds the key to why the answer is that Democrats are smarter than Republicans. That very sentence, that single sentence that we just read, holds the key. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back to discuss the last part of the topic: are Republicans dumber than Democrats? See you Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for a very lively discussion. Be there.
Your one item would be the name your price tool?
It helps people save on car insurance. Why wouldn't it save me?
Why? What would you bring? A boat?
Huh.
I'm telling you, Michael Jordan himself was right here in my McDonald's. I fixed him the very first McJordan special.
Right, Bill.
I did. I took a quarter-pound of pure beef, smoked bacon, cheese, and some of my favorite barbecue sauce, and I named it the McJordan Special.
Bill, the sandwich, definitely great.
Yeah, but you got the cooling with that story.
But it's true. How you doing, Bill? Hi, Michael. Michael.
The McJordan Special for a limited time.
Whoa! That is some group of people. Thousands. So nice. Thank you very much. That's really nice. Thank you. It's great to be at Trump Tower. It's great to be in a wonderful city, New York. And it's an honor to have everybody here. This is beyond anybody's expectations. There's been no crowd like this. We used to have victories, but we don't have them. When was the last time anybody saw us beating, let's say, China in a trade deal? They kill us. I beat China all the time.
Donald Trump has transformed America in ways no one could ever anticipate. One can only guess where the country will be at the end of his presidency. We have, however, captured the journey to the Oval Office in the book entitled Defiant for America. They said he didn't have the guts to run for public office. He proved them wrong. They said his presidential bid would not last a few weeks. He proved them wrong. They said he could not become the nominee. He proved them wrong. Get a copy of this book and follow Donald Trump in his journey to make America great again. Found at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere online. Get your own copy today.
I'm Jeff Gannett, CEO of Macy's, and I wanted to take a moment of your time to thank you for being such an amazing customer, because I truly believe that Macy's customers are the greatest in the world. Recently, you said you wanted a simpler rewards program. Well, I'm here to say that we've heard you, and starting this month, we're introducing the new and improved Macy's Star Rewards, a reimagined, simpler rewards program starring you. You said you wanted more savings. All members at every level get 25% off any day you choose with Star Passes. You said you wanted free shipping. Gold status means getting free shipping with no minimum, plus the silver status benefit. You said you wanted better rewards. Platinum status means 5% back in rewards every day on all Macy's merchandise, no exclusions, plus gold and silver status benefits. We want Macy's customers to know they are the best customers in the world. And we want each and every one of our cardholders to know that with the new Macy's Star Rewards, it is your time to shine.
Meet the new Macy's Star Rewards, exclusive to cardholders. Discover your status today at Macys.com/Star Rewards.
Ignorance, they say, is the biggest threat to any democracy. Indeed, it is. Plato, a Greek philosopher born in 427 BC, said that ignorance is the root and stem of all evil. Today, members in the Republican Party wear ignorance as a badge of honor, while the rest of the country watch powerless the destruction of a country which was once the envy of the world. The media is the enemy of the country, said Donald Trump. The Democrat legislators are obstructionists for not going along with everything the president wants. The Department of Justice is biased for investigating corruption in the Trump administration. This is the United States of America. Any question? In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies, presenting to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a recent survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore.
Wayfair, you've got just what I need. Everything from my home, you got it for me. I never see selection quite like this. Every color and size in my mind. They got every single thing on my list. And with 70% off, who knows what I'll find? Wayfair, you've got just what I need. Everything from my home, you got it for me. Wayfair, and the shipping was free. Now my home's the home I want.
From all of us at Wayfair, find what you need today.
Hello everyone, I am MD and this is the Fourth Branch Project, the first and only program which is dedicated exclusively to those with common sense, a spirit of patriotism, and a determination for a more perfect union. The Fourth Branch Project seeks to emphasize country over party. Its primary objective is to restore interest in civic duty and involvement in social, political issues, discussion, debate, which might impact lives in this generation and quite possibly in future ones. Put differently, the Fourth Branch Project is a journey towards restoring America's greatness, where patriotism is the foundation of every decision, every policy, every word, every action. Said differently, it is a journey to save democracy in America. Stay with us. We will be right back. Hello again, I am MD and this is the Fourth Branch Project. We are debating, are Republicans dumber than Democrats? For a decade now, studies have proved that the answer is yes, indeed, Democrats are smarter than Republicans. So the question is, how could that be? how could that even be possible? Well, although we're not going to debate science, we're not in any position to do so, but what we are going to do is we're going to use science to help us understand why that is. Because both Democrats and Republicans, they live in the same environment, they have the same opportunity, and so on. And besides, if you look around, you'll find quite a number of very smart individuals in the Republican Party. So the question would definitely confuse any Republican, or confuse some, anger others, as to that has no basis whatsoever. But again, it's only a foolish person that will argue with science, that will argue with research. So on the Fourth Branch Project, we rely on a number of we base what we're doing on unproven methods, on facts, on anything that's verifiable. That's what we tend to use, and the reason for that is because our goal is not political. Our ultimate goal is towards a more perfect union. And while I realize and I admit that not everybody will be able to join that to be on that bandwagon, because I can give you example after example of people going the wrong way. The Civil War is a perfect example where millions of people took a side that was obviously wrong, but they took it anyway, and quite a few thousands of them, tens of thousands of them, lost their lives. So no illusion here on my part as to everybody, especially those who are affected by the outcome, or those who don't like the outcome, would tend to discard it. And that's not really a group that we would waste time working with, because it would really take an act of God to try to get everybody on board. So the question, the sentence that we left you with is that conservatives exhibit less cognitive ability than liberals do. Now, that sentence holds the key to why Republicans are dumber than Democrats. And I'm going to be departing from the idea that's actually true, despite the fact I just mentioned that we're not going to fight science, we're not going to fight experts, but we found that on the surface, when you say something like that, and I understand that's probably why it angers Republicans to hear or to hear that and grind their teeth, or even discard the whole discussion altogether. And because there is something beyond the sentence, because if you just take the sentence by itself, it sounds bad that by saying that Democrats are smarter than Republicans. It sounds bad, that's why Republicans are, they couldn't care less, and besides, so what? In my interaction with Republicans, some of them tend to make reference to material things that they have that would shut down any conversation in regards to whether Republican are smarter or dumber than Democrat. And usually that's a sign for me that I am in the presence of someone who is not going to be one of the people in the group that I would want to work with to help towards a more perfect union. Because if I say 2 + 2 are 4 and we're having an argument, then I would be wasting my time trying to convince you that's the case. So that's what I meant by that. I do not believe that I hold the key to the absolute truth. I do not believe I hold the key to answers about everything in life. But when something is proven, when science put its stamp of approval on a topic, on something that we're debating, then any straying away from that, unless it's for philosophical discussion, that would lead to nowhere. Other than that, there is no point to continue the conversation. So what is it about that those researches that found that the Republicans are dumber than Democrats? Now, here is the interesting thing to keep in mind, and you're going to find out that it is absolutely true. The research is actually absolutely true, and there is a reason for that. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to display, while I will still be talking, but I'm going to display on the screen a picture of a brand, and we will talk about around that picture and detail as to why science has come to that conclusion that Republicans are dumber than Democrats. Take a look. Now, what you are looking at, and interestingly enough, if you look at the picture on the top, the brand on the top, on the left, it has a little blue area on the what medicine refer to as the left posterior insula of the brain. The left posterior insula of the brain. This is where Democrats actually process information. Interesting, eh? The left and posterior insula is where Democrat, if you look at the blue bar is much higher than the lighter blue. So the blue bar represent Democrat brain, and the smaller bar would represent Republican brain. Of course, that part of the brain, everybody has it. So it's not like Democrat has a left posterior insula and Republican don't. They do, but it's a way to show you how, given a particular topic or a particular aspect of life, Democrats use a much larger portion of that, a much larger part of that part of the brain. The left posterior insula of the brain is used more widely by Democrats than used by Republicans. Now look at the second picture right at the bottom, the second picture, and there are two small little square. One is yellow, the other one is, I'm not sure of the color, but it's another yellowish color, but there are two of them. Now this part of the brain is called the right amygdala. The right amygdala part of the brain is used mostly by Republicans. So, and that's the interesting thing. Remember earlier we were talking about the fact that science was more right about a political party affiliation than people are. So, and that's how they're able to determine that, because, and interestingly enough, even nature seems to be collaborating with the whole concept of Democrat versus Republican. To me, I find it a little bit ironic, but it's science. There is no argument there. They found that most Republican in general tend to use the right amygdala. Remember, the right and the right and the left. Republican, the right, use mostly the right amygdala part of the brain to process information. Democrat, on the other hand, use the left posterior insula of the brain to process information. This is not some random thing that we're talking about. It's proven by observation, by scientific observation, that Democrats process information mostly using the left posterior insula of the brain. Republican, on the other hand, use the right amygdala portion of the brain to process information. Now, what does that mean? Now, of course, it means something. That's why we are talking about that as in terms of why Republicans are dumber than Democrats. Remember earlier we quoted Ronald Bailey, who wrote a piece on June of 2014 that says conservative exhibit less cognitive ability than liberals do. Remember that we mentioned that? Now, here is a science proving that in fact it's true, because Republicans use the right amygdala portion of the brain, contrary to Democrats who use the left posterior insula of the brain. What does that mean? Now, here is where it would start making a lot of sense to anyone who is interested in understanding why that particular statement about Republicans dumber than Democrat has been debated over and over and over. And it's not just because Democrats want to anger a Republican, or Democrat want to humiliate or to minimize or anything of this sort. It's proven that that's the case. Now, here's why. The right amygdala part of the brain cannot process complex information. Now, a Republican may throw a fit and say, wait a minute, we can process complex information, right? Republican can throw that fit and say, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Republicans, they have engineers who are Republicans, scientists who are Republicans, and so on. They can process complex information. What are we talking about? The study didn't say that in general, because you have to look at the general way that whether it's smart Republican, which sound like kind of contradiction really, talking about Republicans are dumber than Democrat, right? Even those in the Republican Party who are considered smart, very smart people, engineers, scientists, astronauts, etc., those are very smart people, right? But here's the interesting thing. Concept, abstract concept, complexity of life, of the world, they have a lot of difficulty processing that. Now, I don't know if you remember, well, you may or may not, because I talked about that on the last on last Saturday on the series, the documentary on comparing Donald Trump with Adolf Hitler. I mentioned that, which sound really contradictory when I mention it, but now it starts making sense even to myself now that I'm discussing this aspect of the brain, that there are people who actually have a college degree, a master's degree, or even a PhD. Those people are still considered ignorant in matters of what you would consider matters of life. Because how would you explain that someone who holds a PhD, a master's degree, which means that individual have a wealth of knowledge, and yet if you say that this person is ignorant, then people would throw a fit, would say, how dare you call so-and-so ignorant or stupid, when in reality, and that's the thing, in reality, science says that that individual, if that individual is a Republican, that individual has a major deficiency, and he's the reason. Now let me show you again, because I'm not making those things up. Those things were studied in not just one time. Those things are being studied as we talk, because since 2009 there has been really almost an aggressive type of study of the brain, because it just baffles people that that's the way it is. Now look at the brain, the bottom part of the brain on the left. That bottom part show you that Republican process matters of life in the right amygdala of the brain. I'm not saying that, it's study that shows that clearly. That's where Republican process information. The right amygdala is used, they make use of the right amygdala part of their brain to process information. Democrat, on the other hand, that's brain on the left top part of it's the Democrat use the left posterior insula of the brain. Now here's why. I mentioned earlier that Republicans do not have cognitive ability to grasp complexity of the world. Now that sounds ominous, that sounds bad, that sounds as if someone is making that up. But science doesn't lie. Now I'm not putting emphasis on that to in a way to really make Republicans feel bad, because again, as I said, the purpose of this program is towards a more perfect union. But unless you can identify the obstacle that prevent to the achieving of the more perfect union, that will never be achieved. And in the discussion of this topic, are Republican dumber than Democrat? Now the answer is already provided. The answer is yes. Republicans are much dumber than Democrat. Now what we're talking about is why. Why is that? How could that be? Because Republicans have scientists, they have astronauts, they have engineers. How could they be dumber than Democrat? Now here's the answer. The answer is in black and white. Republicans process matters of life in the right amygdala part of their brain. Democrat, on the other hand, process information in the left posterior insular part of their brain. What does that mean in English? Now, here's the part that's going to make it crystal clear that it's true. Republican, if you look at the way we'll take politics, which is much easier to understand, if you look at the way that they process information, Republicans look at everything in black and white. Republican would tell you being straight is good, being gay is bad, being white is good, being black is bad, being American is good, being foreigners is bad, having money is good, being poor is bad, having gun is good, being a criminal is bad. So Republicans have a very simple way of processing information. To them, life is really that simple. They cannot process complex information. And here's the kicker. The smart people in the Republican Party exploit that. They exploit the fear, that kind of simplicity of mind that Republicans have. What did Donald Trump do? They get you to fear foreigners. They get you to fear everybody that don't look like you. Criminals. Blacks are criminal. Hispanics are criminal. And you fear that. You need guns to protect yourself. That's the way Republicans pass. The smart Republican, that's what they do. They pass information. That's why when we say Republicans are dumber, in general, that is the case. But you do have the smart one that science would tell you that those people who are considered smart Republican, their brains do not have the same outline as what you would call the true Republican. That may come to you as a surprise. And it should be, because the people that are considered smart and that are considered Republican, their brains do not have the same picture that you're currently looking at, which means they do not process information the same way Republicans process information. Isn't that something? Now, you thought you knew everything that you knew about Republicans. You don't. Now, the people who are true Republican, they process information with the right amygdala portion of the brain. In other words, they cannot grasp complexity of the world. They want simplification. That's why the people who are smart and who claim to be Republican, they sometimes tell you, I've been a Republican all my life. No, you cannot discuss that, because who can? They may have been Republican for 10, 15, 20 years. But you have no idea that they are Republican, because at some point in their life, remember that Ronald Reagan was a Democrat at some point? Well, at some point in their life, they realized that there is an opportunity in the Republican Party. And that opportunity is to exploit something that somebody or nobody else seen. What did Donald Trump do? Donald Trump exploit exactly the same thing in the Republican Party. The fear that they have of blacks, the fear that they have of Hispanic, the fear that they have of foreigners, Donald Trump exploit that. So when they say that Republicans are dumber than Democrats, that is absolutely true. It is true because Republicans process matters of the world with the right amygdala portion of the brain. Translation, they cannot grasp complexity, so someone simplified for them. Remember Rick Santorum in 2012 when he was running, he said he wanted to rally a crowd around him, and he said, and he casted that people were on welfare, and he said, I'm not gonna work and let people on welfare take advantage of. Now what he did is he cast he simplified the matter as if he's saying that blacks are on welfare, so you white people be with me and then we'll get rid of that. When in fact we already know that it's not true, that we already know, according to record, according to information that we have available, more whites are on welfare than black. But that's not what Republicans who cast themselves, people who cast themselves as Republican, they use that because they know that the scare tactic work. Because Republicans, the people who are actually Republicans, they cannot process complexities of matters of complexity. So someone simplified for them. Now, you can argue all you want. I'm not one to be able to argue that point with you because, again, as I say, the discussion here is not to prove that Republicans are dumber, but to identify where the problem comes from. And unless we identify where the problem comes from, there is nothing we can really do to solve the to work towards a more perfect union. Today, the problem is that Republicans do not have the cognitive ability to grasp complexity of the world. They do not have that, and it's not their fault. It's not something that there is nothing that you can possibly do about that lack of ability, that deficiency, because you process information as Republican with the right amygdala of the brain. You Democrat process information with the left posterior insula of the brain. So neither Democrat nor Republican have anything that they can do about that because you were born a certain way. Now, the question I always ask, I'm still asking, I still cannot get an answer, is when someone move from being a Democrat to being a Republican, does that change their brain? Or vice versa? Does that change the way their brain function? The answer is actually none. Absolutely not. So it's not because Ronald Reagan left the Democrat Party and became a Republican and all of a sudden he processed information a different way. No. What he did is now, because he understands how Republican brain works, whether he understands it from a knowledge perspective or is simply from an observation perspective, now that an understanding was developed, now they exploit that. Because people who are Republican, they process information of matters of the world with the right amygdala portion of the brain. Translation, they cannot grasp complexity, so everything has to be simplified for them. So you have to tell them that being straight is good, being gay is bad. Trying to explain the complexity that how someone is gay, how that comes about, how that works, is too complex for them to grasp. That's why they stay away from it. So they rather stick with straight is good, gay is bad. So people do not, in the Republican Party, do not have the ability to grasp complex matters. So that's why people like Donald Trump exploit that. Network like Fox exploit that. In fact, I talk a great deal about that on the making of Fox. I had a documentary of 3 episodes where I talk in great deal about that. That in fact, places like network like Fox exploit that in the Republican Party. They know you're afraid of certain things, and they exploit that. That's why whenever there is a discussion about anything, it is a guarantee that they're going to be using a very simplistic way to explain it to you. I'll take the example today. A perfect example, that you have to put more conservative judge in the court. Now, what is the reason they give you? Very simple reason. Because they will protect your right. Now, that sounds like a very simple thing for you to understand. They don't have to go through all the complexity of what a judge supposed to, what kind of background a judge supposed to have, how well-rounded a judge supposed to be, what their job is supposed. They don't have to go through all that, because you cannot, as Republican, grasp the complexity of the discussion. So they simplify, the network simplify it for you. That's the same thing the people in the leadership of the Republican Party, that's what they do. They simplify everything for the Republican. And the reason is very simple. Whether they knew it or not, I'm not sure. But one thing is certain, they're exploiting it. They exploit the fact that people in the Republican Party, they process information with the right amygdala portion of the brain. People in the Democrat Party process information with the left posterior insula of the brain. What does that mean? That Democrats tend to reason with things, tend to see with things, both sides of a coin, trying to analyze things. That's why they appear smarter, because they don't just say gay is bad, straight is good. They look at both sides of the coin, trying to understand what makes someone a certain way, and why do we have to be against that person, and so on and so forth. So that's why Republicans tend to simply call Democrats liberal, as if it's a negative connotation, because they try to say it's bad, because everything is simplified for them. And watch, and you'll find out that everything that I just said is true. You go to Fox, they simplify everything for you. How do they simplify it? How does Fox Network simplify the investigation currently being handled by Robert Mueller? Very simple. Robert Mueller is after Trump. Robert Mueller wants to get rid of Trump. Robert Mueller is trying to impeach Trump. They simplify everything for you. So Republicans do have the problem of grasping complexity. Any matters of complexity, they cannot grasp it. So the people in the leadership, the people who actually understand how vulnerable the core group of the Republicans are, they exploit that. So it's not as simple as when you watch Fox, it's not as simple as Mueller investigation is about getting Trump, because it's the simplest thing to say for you to go against it. And they as you can tell, that's what is used. And when you hear Giuliani on TV, that's what he does as well. Simplicity. It's easy to grasp, and they know that their audience cannot process complex information. Oh, don't try to stone me, because I'm not responsible of the problem. And the problem is not the making of anybody. You were born that way. Republican process matters of the world with the right amygdala portion of their brain. Democrat process matters of the world with the left posterior insula of the brain. Translation: Republican cannot process complex information. Democrats can and do. So what that translates to? That most people in the Republican Party that tells you that they're Republican, a number of them actually are Republican because it benefits them and it helps them exploit the simplicity of the brain of the core group of Republican. Fox Network does that. If a discussion comes about gun, what do they say? If you remember when Obama became president, he hasn't even sworn in yet that they already start talking about Obama is going to take your gun away. Very simple, right? No need to try to explain that to you. Well, you have a gun. Obama is going to take that. How much simpler do you want that? And they repeat it. They repeated it. They repeated it over and over and over. They bring experts, they bring analysts whose job is to simply force the same issue, repeat it the same thing, actually give you reason to believe that's the case. So they already did the work. Your brain as Republican can only process simple information. That's what they give to you, and they bring celebrity, just like they do in any commercial. Celebrity do the commercial to sell the product. So people in the leadership in the Republican Party, they do exactly the same thing. They bring celebrity to hammer the point in a very simplistic way, because their audience has a simplistic mind. So can you change that? Of course, that can be changed. Yes, you were born to process information that way, but you can learn to process information in a more logical way, because logic doesn't belong to a particular group. Today, simplicity, that's what your brain uses. That's why everybody exploit that kind of simplicity. In fact, that's also the reason that Fox is able to harness a large group of people with a very, very simplistic mind and continue to evangelize those people in very simplistic manner. It's very simple to understand. Democrats want to take your gun away. You don't need any analysis on that. You don't need anybody to analyze anything for you, because that's very simple. So all they need to do is bring celebrity after celebrity after celebrity to tell you, yes, that's true, Democrats are going to take your gun away. But if you talk to a Democrat about the exact same issue that they're talking about, they will bring analysis of different kind to show you different circumstances where they think gun is good, circumstances where they see gun is dangerous, where they see only law enforcement should have it, and so on and so forth. So they analyze the situation in a very logical way. But Republican leaders know that Republicans have very simplistic minds, so they exploit that. So what needs to be done? because you cannot change your mind the way it works. Nobody can, but you can change the way you process information. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to happen overnight, but for Democrats dealing with Republicans, that's really something to keep in mind. It's a difficult thing when two people are having a conversation about the same topic, but that person is here with that much logic into the conversation, but this person sees things really at this level. Really, is Democrat arguing over the things here. Republican, you cannot even see it, is all the way down there, because Republican process things in a very simplistic manner. Democrat brings a lot of aspect of the topic into the conversation in order to come to a conclusion. It's both good and bad for Democrat, that is, because Republicans get their message out pretty quickly. That's unfortunate because it doesn't help perfect the union. Because the simplicity of the message doesn't translate to accuracy, doesn't translate to truth. That's not what simplicity means. Because if you say straight is good, gay is bad, who is right, who is wrong? It doesn't translate to any truthfulness of the statement. It doesn't translate to accuracy. It doesn't translate to what you would consider the norm. It simply says it's easy for one side to grasp it. And that's what the Republican leaders are betting on. Their job is easy. They don't have to do much. That's why every time they have something to say, they bypass all the station, all the network that could have challenged them on what they're saying, and they go to Fox, because Fox hand them the microphone to say whatever they want, because the audience they cater to has a very simplistic mind. It's good for politicians. It's good for Fox because it helps them increase their revenues, keeps an audience large enough so that they can charge advertisers a lot of money, but it is very bad for the country. Because simplicity is not equal to correct, is not equal to good. It's simply an easier way for Republican leaders to pass their information, no matter how wrong that information is. A good example, the $1.5 billion tax cut. Their message was very simple, and that's the only thing you hear from the president down to the last, to the Republican, the unknown Republican in Washington. You're gonna get a tax cut. You're gonna get a huge tax cut. No explanation needed. In reality, not only it was more complex than that, you didn't get a huge tax cut, not if you are in the lower class, middle or lower class, but more importantly, there was no discussion of the complexity of that tax package, which you will find out that your children and grandchildren owe that money. And yet, the corporation that got the tax cut will not have to pay a single penny. Again, Republican leaders present everything in a very simplistic way. You're going to get a tax cut. That's all that you need to hear. And you are very receptive to it, to no fault of yours, because your way of processing information lies on the right amygdala portion of your brain. So now that you know that, there is work to do. So instead of taking every single simple thing that you hear, whether it's from Fox or from anyone in the Republican leadership, again, see that they will try to simplify every topic for you. Instead of taking it at face value, why not start doing the logical thing? Start analyzing things from a logical perspective. You're not going to change your brain because it's a physical, you were born that way. But you can start processing information in a very logical way. I thank you for watching this special program of the Fourth Branch. We will see you on Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for the next, for episode 4 of the series, Can Donald Trump be compared to Adolf Hitler? It's a very important series you don't want to miss, because it does provide information for you to know, at least to educate yourself about the past, but at the same time to be able to draw a conclusion as to what that means. Thank you for watching. Until next time, enjoy the rest of the day. See you. See you Saturday at 10:30 a.m. for a very lively discussion. Be there.
Whoa. Your one item would be the name your price tool?
It helps people save on car insurance. Why wouldn't it save me?
Why? What would you bring?
A boat?
Huh.
I'm telling you, Michael Jordan himself was right here in my McDonald's. I fixed him the very first McJordan special.
Right, Bill.
I did. I took a quarter pound of pure beef, smoked bacon, cheese, and some of my favorite barbecue sauce, and I named it the McJordan Special.
Bill, the sandwich, definitely great.
Yeah, but you got the cooling with that story.
But it's true.
How you doing, Bill?
Hi, Michael. Michael.
The McJordan Special for a limited time.
Whoa! That is some group of people, thousands. So nice. Thank you very much. That's really nice. Thank you. It's great to be at Trump Tower. It's great to be in a wonderful city, New York. And it's an honor to have everybody here. This is beyond anybody's expectations. There's been no crowd like this. We used to have victories, but we don't have them. When was the last time anybody saw us beating, let's say, China in a trade deal? They kill us. I beat China all the time.
Donald Trump has transformed America in ways no one could ever anticipate. One can only guess where the country will be at the end of his presidency. We have, however, captured the journey to the Oval Office in the book entitled Defiant for America. They said he didn't have the guts to run for public office. He proved them wrong. They said his presidential bid would not last a few weeks. He proved them wrong. They said he could not become the nominee. He proved them wrong. Get a copy of this book and follow Donald Trump in his journey to make America great again. Found at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere online. Get your own copy today.
I'm Jeff Gannett, CEO of Macy's, and I wanted to take a moment of your time to thank you for being such an amazing customer, because I truly believe that Macy's customers are the greatest in the world. Recently, you said you wanted a simpler rewards program. Well, I'm here to say that we've heard you, and starting this month, we're introducing the new and improved Macy's Star Rewards, a reimagined, simpler rewards program starring you. You said you wanted more savings. All members at every level get 25% off any day you choose with Star Passes. You said you wanted free shipping. Gold status means getting free shipping with no minimum, plus the silver status benefit. You said you wanted better rewards. Platinum status means 5% back in rewards every day on all Macy's merchandise, no exclusions, plus gold and silver status benefits. We want Macy's customers to know they are the best customers in the world. And we want each and every one of our cardholders to know that with the new Macy's Star Rewards, it is your time to shine.
Meet the new Macy's Star Rewards, exclusive to cardholders. Discover your status today at Macys.com/Star Rewards.